So we have another couples video, and as you may have noticed, this has some Thriller Bark themed things, given the fact that the title card has, or the thumbnail has Shindri and Lola on it. So this one is called The Horror of Love, and mostly I'm going to be talking about like Hogback and Shindri, and then Absalom and Lola. Now, admittedly, they are technically like Shindri is not like willingly with Hogback, and like by technicality, Absalom is not willingly with Lola, but still, I kind of did want to highlight the fact that there is kind of this representation in the manga of like twisted love, which is kind of where I put like Hogback in regards to like his affection for Shindri. And then Lola is kind of more obsessive love, I guess. But before that, I did want to make note, since I didn't mention it in the other video in regards to the first part of the, first part of Paradise, I did want to mention Tom and Kokoro. Now, I do not remember if it is ever explicitly stated whether or not they are like a couple or married or anything like that. But I did want to point out the fact, and I mentioned this in the video about fathers and mothers, that obviously Tom and Kokoro fill that role for Frankie and Iceberg. They are his mother. They are their mother and father. And Kokoro, when Tom is taken to Ennis Lobby when he dies, whichever variation of it you want to go with, she is heartbroken over it. She watched the man that she's been living with, partnered with, whatever, for the past however many years be taken away. And she has also then watched one of these boys, Frankie, or Cuddy Flam at the time, watched as he supposedly is, he's hit by, the sea train that they spent, it's a life's work building the sea train. She watches as he supposedly dies, or is told that he supposedly died. And she, of course, Kokoro obviously becomes an alcoholic and drinks and drinks and drinks. And we see her still being an alcoholic when she's, like the conductor at the station and everything. And then, later on, almost every time that we see her, she's drinking, one way or the other. And, so you can kind of see where that comes from. And I do kind of put that as, Kokoro, even in regards to like, even if they weren't necessarily married, or even if they weren't necessarily, like a couple, boyfriend, girlfriend, domestic partners, whatever you want to refer to it that way, she still was heartbroken over losing Tom. And the only reason that I say I don't think we get any confirmation as to whether or not they were actually married was because of the fact of Chimney, her granddaughter, is not Tom's granddaughter, because Chimney is only a quarter mermaid. So her father would have been a hybrid. And then Chimney is, she's like 3/4 human, 1/4 mer person. Sea, fish man, sea, mermaid, whatever. Because we of course know that Kokoro is a full mermaid. It's just that she's old enough and her fins split apart so she can walk now, which I'm like, okay, that's just weird, but okay. So and I'll go over that a little bit more when I get to the Grandparents' Day video, depending on like either I went over this in the Grandparents' Day video if this goes up after that, or I will go over this in the Grandparents' Day video if this goes up before that, whichever happens. So, we have Tom and Kokoro, and then this is where we get into the main ones that I wanted to talk about for this video. But first, I have a shirt that is covered in carnivorous like dinosaurs, and I just think it's cute. And then I also got this. It's like a hedgehog, and it's adorable, and it's so soft, and I just thought it was kind of appropriate since I am going to be talking about Thriller Bark, or some things that deal with Thriller Bark. And, Perona likes cute things. Well, cute, creepy looking things, and this thing is very cute, so it's so cute and soft, so it's going to go in the background. I don't know what to name it. We'll see. Go in the background. There you go. You're cute. So, first up, Hogback and Shindri. We of course learned from Chopper that Hogback is this, renowned, surgeon and everything, and he was this, amazing surgeon that Chopper and, the Chopper had admired kind of from afar, read so many of his books and everything, and he's probably heard a bit about, Hogback from, Dr. Hirluck and Dr. Kureha, give or take. And so he was very interested in meeting, Hogback, and then of course they get there, and then they're introduced to Sindri, who basically throws plates at them, which I find hilarious. It's like, I will throw plates at you because I don't like plates. But of course, the backstory that we have for Sindri is that she had been this amazing, popular performer that had fame and everything, but she was still an extremely nice and compassionate woman and was very kind to everyone. And of course, she had been, Hogback had adored her when she was this performer. And what ended up happening was, he had fallen in love with her, and, he thought because she was so kind to him that she loved him back. And he tells her that he's in love with her, or he then finds out that she's engaged. And she's engaged to this very rich, well-to-do man. And what ends up happening is she, to test the man's love for her, because she's not, quite sure if he loves her for her, or if he loves her for the fact that she is, beautiful and very popular and everything. And, so she breaks one of these very expensive plates that he has. And he then gets extremely angry with her and calls off the marriage. She then, in her state of depression, she does end up unfortunately falling off of a stage where she'd been performing. And she dies, presumably of a broken neck or something like that, in regards to how she fell. And then Hogback goes and basically digs up her body and brings her to Moria after he kind of fixes up the body. And then Moria then rips out, the shadow from this other, woman. I'll go over the woman a little bit later. Rips out the shadow from her and puts it into Sindri. And, causing Sindri to kind of gain a slightly different personality. But the fact that Sindri still hates plates is still there. And she continues to, she'll throw plates in a defensive thing. And I should have brought some plates up and put them on the bed, but I didn't do that. I thought about it, but I'm like, no, then we just have to wash them again because the dog's been all over the bed. It's not a sanitary place to put dishes. And, she then works for Hogback because, Moria said, you serve Hogback. And she then, she serves Hogback for the next however many years. And then, of course, when Nami and Usopp and Chopper arrive at Thriller Bark, when of course the Straw Hats arrive, and they arrive at, Hogback's castle, Chopper is just extremely interested to see him, and then of course they meet Sindri, and her thing with Hogback is you can tell that even as a zombie, Sindri does not like Hogback. She, beyond the fact of, she always breaks plates, she continuously, refuses to serve him food on plates or bowls, so it's she gives him soup and it's all over the counter. She gives him some type of dessert or something and just plops it in front of him, and it doesn't have any type of, dish or anything to keep it from getting on the table. And, Hogback, given Hogback's love for Sindri does, just basically just make him start, eating it off the table. Good thing he's a doctor, otherwise he probably would have died of some type of infection a while ago from eating stuff off of the table that's had so many dead bodies wandering around the area, in regards to the zombies that are all over the place. And so Hogback still adores Sindri, and of course Nami and Chopper and Usopp end up finding their way into Hogback's room, and they find all of these pictures and posters and portraits of Sindri from when she was alive. I don't remember if it's Sindri's room or if it's Hogback's room that they go into one of them, and they find all of this stuff, and they find out that, oh, she died, so then that woman had to be a zombie. And this is Chopper is having his kind of moment of crisis where he's like, but I adored Dr. Hogback, and he was such a good doctor and everything, and now he's not. And Chopper has his own like existential crisis in regards to like Hogback, but he gets over it, and then of course, um, Chopper and Robin then have to then fight Sindri when all the Straw Hats are having their battles. Chopper and Robin work together to fight Sindri. And Chopper is, of course, we have the moment where it's, Chopper yelling at Sindri and, telling her, this is not you. You can fight this. You don't have to obey Hogback or obey Moria or whatever the case is. You're your own person. Remember who you used to be, which is, I guess, like trying to talk to like the Sindri's body, trying to remind her who she used to be, and talking to the shadow that is like, this is not your body. Your real body is out there somewhere else. And Hogback is still very much obsessed with Sindri. I mean, like, the way that he has her dress, I mean, yeah, that might be like an outfit that she used to wear when she was, when she was performing and everything. And he probably like has her dress up in different outfits every now and then, which is more where we get into the sick and twisted section of that logic in regards to Hogback. But I mean, the man's sick and twisted in and of himself. Given the fact that he makes zombies and then they get brought back to life, and he just doesn't seem to care because he kind of snapped a while ago. I'm kind of thinking just Sindri's death in and of itself made him snap, because he got so, depressed and everything that he abandoned his medical career when she died. And, she just, he's just more obsessed with her than anything. And, that the love that he had for her shifted into obsession. And I mean, like, there is that whole concept of, could have Sindri, like, if Sindri had survived. I don't even remember if we get an exact age on like how old Sindri was, either A, when she died, or B, how long she's been a zombie, because she's been a zombie for a while. But I don't remember if we get any like exact time frame on that, because Chopper says, "Oh, I know who Dr. Hogback is and everything." And like, he wrote all of this amazing stuff and he did these amazing surgeries and everything, and then he just vanished, and nobody's been able to figure out where he went for a long time. And then they find him and everything, and despite Hogback's love for her, Hogback is also, not above abusing her and brutally treats her like a slave and everything. And, demonstrated that, when he would like kick her and make her lick the floor, something to prove that he, prove a point, prove that he could control her, prove that she had to obey him because Moria told her to obey Hogback. And, and we get the, the very kind of emotional fight between Chopper and Sindri. And I don't remember if it's they get salt into Sindri, like between Robin and Chopper working together, they get salt into Sindri, or if it's just via, her, what Chopper tells her, what Hogback tells her, what she's ordered to do by Moria, that eventually it just makes like the shadows, Moria's power just kind of snap and her shadow leaves. But before it leaves, like, Sindri does smile one last time, and it's kind of like, I'm assuming that's like the shadow making this body smile, because it's like now the shadow is free, but also the body can now be at rest. And because we don't know that much about like the afterlife in One Piece, we know there is an afterlife because Brook got kicked out of it. We know there is an afterlife, and that Brook can like summon the powers of hell. We don't know if like in the afterlife, all of these zombies that work for Moria, that were, made by Moria and made by Hogback, if like the body, the souls, or the spirits that had originally possessed these bodies, if like they're in the afterlife feeling the effects of this or not. I mean, by technicality, the way that, it's like by the time you die, it's like, your body and your soul are no longer connected. And there was probably time between when Sindri died and when Hogback was able to get Moria to like reanimate her. That, whatever part of her was there is like fully no longer in the body, but it also just like finally allows this last bit of Sindri here on, the mortal plane to finally rest. Although we do get kind of a, what ended up happening was, of course, she defied Moria, Hogback's order to, rescue him from wherever he'd been captured by, Chopper and Robin. And we do kind of get a happy ending, a little bit of a happy tied off ending for Shindri. Well, for the shadow of the woman whose shadow was put into Shindri. We see when we see the moments where like all the shadows are returning to people, we see Shindri's shadow return to a woman whose name is Margareta or Margarita. She is a waitress. And when she when her shadow returns to you, because you can feel when your shadow returns to you, it's like, when you get it ripped off of you by Moria, you faint, you pass out for however amount of time, and then like, eventually you wake up. But this woman who's been this waitress for however long and had her shadow ripped away from her and taken by Moria and Hogback so many years ago, since we don't have an exact time frame on that. She gets her shadow back and she runs over to the mirror, like she looks at her face and everything's just like, oh, I have my reflection back, because of course you don't have your reflection when you don't have your shadow. And I explained it as like, I kind of think it as like, when your shadow is taken, you're not whole, and so that way your reflection doesn't appear, because like your shadow is not appearing anyway. And what ends up happening is, of course, when she ran over the mirror to look, she dropped all these rare plates that she was holding that belonged to her employer. And instead of him getting, extremely angry and everything at her for like dropping these plates, he's very pleased that she finally has her shadow back, and then, they celebrate. And I like that. I'm like, okay, we got a happy ending there. Doesn't mean that, Margareta and her employer are going to be getting, not that they're going to be, married or anything like that down the line. We're probably never going to see the woman again. But it's at least she's not in trouble the way that, Shindri had been when she broke the plates. And of course, it's just kind of funny, like Shindri just like throwing plates. I just find that funny. And then we move on to our other couple. That kind of is a Thriller Bark-esque couple for the horror of love that we get demonstrated here. We get to talk about Absalom and Lola, zombie Lola, not Charlotte Lola, although she is part of this. So we of course have Absalom, who's of course one of the the mysterious four, so that are the leaders of the Thriller Bark pirates. And he's in charge of course, all the zombie generals and such. We see him wake up the zombie generals, and then we're introduced to Lola, who is this giant warthog type zombie who is, every time she sees Absalom, she just like, she's in this wedding dress and everything, and she just like keeps proposing to Absalom. And he keeps refusing again and again and again. And when, she keeps trying to kiss him and like trying to trick him into signing like marriage registrations, and that's just kind of funny to watch. But it, none of it works, because of course her Lola's shadow of course came from Charlotte Lola, who is of course, the, proposal Lola, whatever the name, whatever her, epitaph was, that she continuously proposes to any man that she meets. And, Lola, zombie Lola, is obsessed with Absalom. And even though Lola is like one of the, I think the zombie Lola is like considered one of the like garden zombies or so, that are like that are kind of supposed to work, Perona's Wonder Garden and everything, because she's an animal zombie. She's not like the zombie general, so I think she more qualifies under Perona, but she still is like obsessed with Absalom. And she of course, when she finds out that Absalom wants to marry Nami, she then gets extremely angry at Nami, and then of course we get the moment where like Nami and Lola end up like interacting with each other in the garden, and Nami just says, "No, I'm not really a girl. I'm really a guy. My name is like Nami Zo, and I just dress this way." And like she messes with Lola and everything, like tricks her, and she's just like, "But I think you and Absalom would make a great couple." And like Lola's just like, "Oh, really? You think we would? Oh, that's wonderful. Can you help me get him?" And like I just like find that so adorable. And I just that's just so sweet. And of course that's where we get the friendship between Nami and Lola, that then transcends once Lola's shadow gets returned to Lola. Yeah. And what ends up happening is of course Absalom still grabs Nami, and of course he has his clear fruit that allows him to become invisible, and he turns himself and Nami invisible, and he escapes with her. And he takes her to the church, and he has the disturbed priest, put Nami in a wedding dress, And, you know, Sanji is there as well later on after, you know, Absalom has tried to, like, you know, force this knocked out sleeping version of Nami into marrying him, which I'm like, no. No, 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 no. But so we get to see that, and then of course what ends up happening is, you know, Sanji shows up. I don't remember, is it like Sanji shows up or is it Lola shows up first? I don't remember, but like Lola showed up at one point and she, you know, tries to fight against Absalom, and he, you know, she pretends to threaten Nami, and then she tries to attack Absalom, and she's like, well, she's still trying to get Absalom to marry her, but she's also trying to protect Nami, or Namizo as she keeps calling her. And, you know, Sanji does show up at some point, and like he takes out, you know, Absalom, and then Sanji runs off to go do something else. And then, you know, Lola and Nami, you know, I think Lola does get to actually quote unquote marry Absalom, which is just funny. You know, that's just funny. She does, you know, quote unquote get to marry Absalom. And what ends up happening is, of course, you know, she kissed Absalom and they married, and then she informs Nami that, like, oh, Monkey, you know, Luffy is, you know, out there, you know, because his shadow's in Oars and they're trying to fight Oars and everything. And Nami's like, okay, well, I gotta go help him and everything. And she goes off, and but before that, we do get the moment where like Nami and Lola kind of have this you know, touching moment, and, you know, deciding that they will, you know, that they're, you know, that they're friends and everything. Like Nami apologized. She was like, I'm sorry that I, you know, that I lied to you and that I'm actually am a woman and everything. And like Lola's like, that's okay. I knew that you were lying anyway about being a man. You know, but it's still okay. We're still friends and everything. Of course, Nami, you know, is perfectly happy with this, and she goes off. And you know, and like Nami, you know, Lola gets her Absalom because we see her, you know, holding Absalom, and like when Moria is um fighting, of course, he summons all the shadows to him, and one of them is Lola's shadow, of course, and it goes to him. But like we see Lola, like the Warthog version of Lola, the zombie, still holding on to Absalom, who is still completely knocked out at this point in time. And you know, we know that Lola's shadow, the shadow actually returns to, you know, Charlotte Lola, and of course we know that, you know, Lola and Nami are still friends because Lola like kind of recognizes Nami, and, you know, so there's like that transfer with the shadow and everything. And of course sometimes the shadows, you know, shadows can sometimes affect the personalities of the zombies, of course, as was quite obvious with Lola herself, with the zombie Lola. And you know, so that still goes. And I will do this will get brought up in a different video, but of course we know that like Lola, Charlotte Lola, the pirate Lola of the Rolling Pirates, she of course ends up with Gotti of the Fire Tank Pirates, of course, when her and Chiffon are reunited in, like, you know, the, you know, Capone's cover story, you know, Capone's Oh My Family and such, and, you know, they, you know, she ends up with Gotti. But I'll be going over that in a different video down the line. But we still know that, like, both, you know, kind of both shadows to a degree get a happy ending. You know, Margareta's shadow that had been inside of, you know, Shinri gets a happy ending with Margareta because, like, she has a good employer who's, like, you know, is kind to her and such, as opposed to, you know, Hogback that was this, you know, horrible, you know, horrible thing to Shinri. And then, of course, we have, you know, Lola's shadow that had been inside Warthog Lola, zombie, that had then was from, you know, Charlotte Lola, had then transferred back to Lola where it's supposed to belong, and then she, of course, 2 years later ends up with Gotti. I do like Lola's design, and if they ever I know that there are a couple of pig Pokemon, not too many. I mean, like, there's, you know, there's like Grumpig and Spoink, and there's, you know, the you know, the Tepig line, and, you know, there's like Swinub and its line, but there's not really any like pig Pokemon that look fully like a Warthog type thing. And if I ever did end up with like that, if they ever do make that type of a Pokemon that looks kind of like a Warthog, I wouldn't mind, you know, bringing a male and naming it Pumbaa, obviously, because Disney nerd here. But also, I wouldn't mind breeding a female and naming it Lola. What would also be the highlight of that is like if like the female version is like pink. I don't think Pokemon would actually do that, but if they ever did that, that'd be great. And I can't, as much as I like Shinri, because I did like her in the anime. I like you know, like what they portrayed as her being like this, you know, she's very famous and very, you know, popular and everything and very talented, but she was also very kind. And I like that they, you know, depicted her that way, that Oda depicted her that way. And I know that like her and Hogback have like showed up in like and Lola and such have like showed up in like the Boss Luffy historical things that they've done and everything. You know, long before Wano became a thing, we had like the Boss Luffy stuff that showed kind of like, you know, feudal Japan type things with the Straw Hat Pirates, as you know, just like citizens. But I you know, we're probably, you know, Shingri, we're never going to see Shingri again unless we get like a flashback with like Hogback and Moria. And, you know, you know, we'll hopefully see Lola again, as in Lola, Charlotte Lola again. And I'll go over that, you know, Lola's, you know, I'm going to do a video about like, Chiffon and Beige and Lola and Gaudi, and then I'm also just going to throw in like Aladdin and Praline down the line once I get to those couples that are kind of like the Totland based couples to a degree. So that's what we have there for the horror of love, kind of the more twisted side of things in regards to what we see with Hogback, and to a degree Absalom, because of course he is very obsessed with trying to, you know, he licks Robin. He straight up licks Robin. And then of course he does then also, you know, kidnap Nami. So yeah, that's fun. Absalom, I mean, like Absalom's dead now. We know that. We know he's dead because Shiryu now has his devil fruit. And you know, it's straight up stated that Absalom's dead anyway. So Absalom we're probably never going to see again outside of a flashback, or he gets turned into a zombie by Moria. But we'll see what happens with that. So that's what we have for our horror of love couples. The next one will be Silver and Goldie couples. So those are going to be about Silver, you know, Silver's Rayleigh and Shocky, and then of course Goldie Roger, and Portgas D Rouge. They're going to be the next video. So I'm just going to go and record that. So I thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye. Oh, I just can't hold it with that wild mouth of yours. Give me your finger. I love you, Absalom.